Every day you're being influenced. From the moment you wake up, to the ads on your phone, to the way your boss phrases a request, to how politicians craft their speeches. But when does influence cross the line into manipulation? Today, we're diving deep into the dark psychology behind manipulation. The tactics that bypass your rational mind and tap directly into your psychological vulnerabilities. By the end of this video, you'll recognize these techniques and understand how to protect yourself from them. Manipulation differs from persuasion in one crucial way: intent and respect for autonomy. While persuasion aims to convince through reason and mutual benefit, manipulation exploits psychological weaknesses for the manipulator's gain, often at your expense. Robert Cialdini, the godfather of influence psychology, identified 6 key principles that drive human compliance: reciprocity, commitment, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. These principles aren't inherently evil. They're fundamental aspects of how humans connect and cooperate. But when someone uses them without your best interests at heart, when they deliberately obscure information or exploit your vulnerabilities, persuasion becomes manipulation. The difference lies not just in technique, but in the manipulator's willingness to harm you for their benefit. Think of it this way: a good salesperson shows you how a product meets your needs. A manipulator creates needs you didn't know you had and exploits your emotions to fulfill them. Stanley Milgram's famous obedience experiments revealed something terrifying. Ordinary people will inflict harm on others simply because an authority figure tells them to. In his studies, participants delivered what they believed were painful electric shocks to strangers, simply because a man in a white coat told them it was necessary for science. This wasn't about sadism. These were normal, moral people who abandoned their own judgment when faced with apparent authority. Manipulators exploit this deep-seated respect for authority by establishing false credentials, borrowing credibility they haven't earned, or creating elaborate facades of expertise. They might wear expensive suits, use technical jargon, display fake diplomas, or name-drop prestigious institutions. Watch for phrases like "studies show," without actual citations, testimonials from doctors who aren't identified, or pressure to comply because "I'm the expert here." Real authority doesn't need to constantly remind you of its credentials, and legitimate experts encourage questions rather than demanding blind compliance. Remember, the white coat doesn't always mean doctor, and even doctors can be wrong. Solomon Asch demonstrated that people will deny the evidence of their own eyes just to conform with a group. In his line-length experiments, participants gave obviously wrong answers just because everyone else in the room did, even when they could clearly see the right answer. This isn't stupidity, it's survival wiring. Throughout human history, going against the group often meant death, so we evolved to conform. Manipulators weaponize this instinct by manufacturing fake social proof. They buy reviews, create fake testimonials, use stock photos of satisfied customers, or claim popularity that doesn't exist. They might say, "Thousands of people have already joined," without proof, or create artificial urgency with claims like, "Everyone's buying this," or "You're the only one who hasn't signed up yet." Online, this gets more sophisticated with bot accounts, fake followers, and algorithmic manipulation. The key is asking, where's the real evidence? Can you verify these testimonials? Are the reviews authentic? Real social proof should be verifiable, not just asserted. Cialdini showed that reciprocity is hardwired into us. We feel obligated to return favors, even unwanted ones. This social contract built civilizations, but manipulators pervert it into a weapon. They give unsolicited gifts, perform unrequested favors, or provide free samples, not out of generosity, but to create a psychological debt they can later collect with interest. The Hare Krishna movement mastered this by giving people flowers at airports before asking for donations. Most people felt obligated to give something back, even though they never wanted the flower. In modern contexts, this might be a colleague who helps with a small task without being asked, then later requests a major favor, or a company that sends you a free gift, then asks for a large donation. The key red flag is disproportionality. When someone does something small for you, then expects something much larger in return. True generosity doesn't come with a hidden invoice, and you're not obligated to reciprocate something you never requested. Saying thank you, but I didn't ask for this, is a complete response.
Leon Festinger's cognitive dissonance theory explains why we hate contradicting ourselves. It creates uncomfortable mental tension that we'll go to great lengths to resolve. Once we commit to something, especially publicly, we'll often stick to it even when evidence shows it's wrong or harmful. This consistency drive helped our ancestors survive by maintaining group cohesion, but manipulators exploit it ruthlessly. They start small. You believe in being helpful, right? You want to be a good parent, don't you? You consider yourself environmentally conscious? Each small commitment builds psychological momentum toward larger ones. Car salesmen use this by getting you to sit in the car, hold the keys, even imagine owning it before discussing price. Political campaigns get you to put a small bumper sticker on your car before asking for donations or volunteer time. Cults often start with seemingly reasonable requests for commitment before escalating to life-changing demands. The antidote is recognizing that changing your mind when presented with new information isn't weakness, it's wisdom. You're not obligated to maintain consistency with past decisions that no longer serve you. When something appears scarce, we want it more, even if we didn't want it before. This scarcity principle evolved because resources genuinely were limited for most of human history, but manipulators create artificial scarcity to trigger your ancient survival instincts. They claim only 3 left when they have hundreds in stock, or this offer expires at midnight when they'll happily extend it tomorrow. They use countdown timers, limited time offers, and exclusive access to make you feel special and pressured simultaneously. Real estate agents might claim another buyer is very interested to rush your decision. Investment scammers promise exclusive opportunities that won't be available long. The pressure serves a specific purpose, preventing you from thinking clearly, researching alternatives, or consulting others. When you're rushed, your prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational decision-making, gets hijacked by the limbic system's fight or flight response. Legitimate offers usually don't disappear if you take reasonable time to consider them. If someone gets angry when you say, "Let me think about it," or "I'd like to research this," that's a massive red flag. Daniel Kahneman's research on fast and slow thinking reveals that strong emotions hijack our rational decision-making processes. When we're angry, scared, excited, or sad, we switch from careful analysis to quick emotional reactions. Manipulators deliberately trigger these emotional states to bypass your logical mind and access your psychological vulnerabilities. They might use fear of missing out, guilt about letting others down, anger at perceived injustices, or excitement about unrealistic opportunities. A charity might show you heartbreaking images of suffering while asking for immediate donations. A salesperson might make you feel guilty for wasting their time if you don't buy. A romantic manipulator might alternate between making you feel incredibly special and utterly worthless. Political manipulators use anger and fear to short-circuit critical thinking about complex issues. The pattern is always the same. Spike your emotions, then present their solution while you're emotionally compromised. When you notice your emotions being deliberately triggered, that's your cue to step back and engage your rational mind. Ask yourself, what would I decide about this if I were calm? Social psychologist Jonathan Friedman discovered that people who agree to a small request
are significantly more likely to comply with larger ones later. In his landmark study, homeowners who agreed to put a tiny "Drive carefully" sign in their window were later much more willing to install a large, ugly billboard in their front yard. This happens because each compliance changes your self-perception. You start seeing yourself as someone who supports this cause or helps this person. Manipulators exploit this by starting with seemingly innocent requests. A cult might begin with inviting you to a free dinner, then a workshop, then a weekend retreat, slowly escalating commitment until you're isolated from family and donating your life savings. A scammer might start with a small survey, which becomes a phone call, which becomes a sales pitch, which becomes a high-pressure close. Each yes makes the next request feel more consistent with who you are. The key is recognizing that you're not obligated to maintain consistency with small commitments that were designed to manipulate you into larger ones. You can say yes to a survey and no to a sales pitch. You can attend one meeting without joining the organization. The term gaslighting comes from a 1944 film where a husband systematically makes his wife question her own perception of reality by dimming gas lights while denying they're getting dimmer. Modern manipulators use similar tactics to undermine your confidence in your own memory, perception, and judgment. They deny things they clearly said. "I never said that. You're imagining things." They minimize your reactions. "You're being too sensitive," or "you can't take a joke." They rewrite history. "That's not how it happened," when you know it is. They question your memory. "Are you sure? You seem confused lately." This isn't just lying. It's a systematic attack on your relationship with reality itself. The goal is to make you dependent on their version of truth because you no longer trust your own. Gaslighters often combine this with social isolation, ensuring you have fewer outside perspectives to validate your experiences. They might turn friends against you, monopolize your time, or convince you that others don't understand your relationship. The antidote is documenting events, maintaining outside relationships, and trusting your gut when something feels wrong, even if you can't prove it. B.F. Skinner's work on operant conditioning revealed that intermittent reinforcement, unpredictable rewards and punishments, creates the strongest behavioral patterns. It's more addictive than consistent reward because you never know when the next hit is coming, keeping you constantly engaged. Manipulators, particularly in romantic or cult contexts, exploit this with a pattern called love bombing, followed by intermittent reinforcement. They start with overwhelming attention, affection, gifts, and praise, making you feel like the most special person alive. Then they gradually introduce unpredictability. Some days you're amazing, other days you're terrible. You never know which version you'll get, so you work desperately to recreate those early highs. This creates trauma bonding. You become addicted not just to their approval, but to the relief of their approval after their punishment. Victims often describe feeling like they're walking on eggshells, constantly analyzing the manipulator's mood and adjusting their behavior accordingly. The intermittent kindness feels even more precious because it's so unpredictable. Healthy relationships have consistent respect and care, with conflicts handled through communication, not emotional withholding.
Manipulators understand that controlling information is controlling reality. They systematically limit your access to outside perspectives that might contradict their narrative. This might mean monopolizing your time so you can't maintain other relationships, criticizing friends and family members who express concerns, or gradually isolating you from support systems. They become your primary or only source of information about the world, themselves, and even you. In extreme cases, like cults, this includes restricting access to outside media, books, or internet. But it can be subtler. A boss who schedules you so heavily you can't network elsewhere. A partner who creates drama whenever you spend time with friends. Or a group that convinces you everyone outside is ignorant or hostile. They create echo chambers where their voice becomes the loudest or only voice you hear. Over time, this makes their manipulation seem like universal truth rather than one biased perspective. The antidote is maintaining diverse information sources and relationships. If someone discourages you from reading certain things, talking to certain people, or getting outside opinions, ask yourself why they would want to limit your perspective, rather than trust you to make informed decisions. Once you've invested time, money, or emotional energy into something, you feel compelled to continue, even when it's clearly not working. This sunk cost fallacy exists because abandoning an investment feels like admitting the initial decision was wrong, and we hate being wrong. Manipulators exploit this by getting you invested first, then leveraging your reluctance to waste that investment. A fraudulent investment scheme might start with small amounts, then encourage larger investments to protect the initial ones. A manipulative relationship might demand increasing sacrifices. You move across the country for them, give up friends they don't like, change career paths, making it feel impossible to leave because of everything you've already given up. Cults often require significant financial contributions, time commitments, or lifestyle changes early on, making members feel they've invested too much to walk away. The more you've put in, the harder it becomes to leave, even when staying clearly causes more harm. The key insight is that past investments are gone regardless of what you do next. The only question that matters is, what choice serves your future best? Your past sacrifices don't obligate you to make future ones.
Manipulators are masters of projection, accusing you of the very behaviors they're exhibiting themselves. If they're being dishonest, they'll question your honesty. If they're being controlling, they'll call you controlling. If they're having affairs, they'll accuse you of cheating. This serves multiple psychological functions. It deflects attention from their actual behavior, puts you on the defensive instead of holding them accountable, and creates confusion about who's really at fault. When you're busy defending yourself against false accusations, you're not focusing on their problematic actions. This technique is especially insidious because it often contains a grain of truth. Maybe you did get angry when confronting their lies. Maybe you did check their phone after discovering their deception. But they frame your reasonable reactions to their manipulation as proof that you're the real problem. They might say things like, "You're so paranoid," when you've caught them lying repeatedly. Or, "You're trying to control me," when you set reasonable boundaries. The goal is to make you question whether you're the toxic one in the relationship. Trust your perceptions and remember that having normal emotional reactions to abnormal behavior doesn't make you the problem. Knowledge is your first line of defense against manipulation. Understanding these tactics reduces their effectiveness significantly. It's much harder to fall for a trick when you understand how it works. But knowledge alone isn't enough. You need practical strategies. First, create space before important decisions. Manipulators hate delays because time allows your rational mind to regain control. Say, "I need to think about this," or
I never make important decisions on the spot. Second, consult trusted friends or advisors who aren't invested in the outcome. They can often spot manipulation you might miss because you're emotionally involved. Third, trust your gut feelings. If something feels wrong, it probably is, even if you can't articulate exactly why. Fourth, maintain your support network and outside perspectives. Manipulators work to isolate you because isolation makes you vulnerable. Fifth, document important conversations and events. Gaslighters can't rewrite history if you have records. Finally, remember that no is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone explanations for your boundaries, and anyone who pressures you to justify reasonable limits is showing you exactly why those limits are necessary.
Manipulation thrives in darkness, but withers under the light of awareness. These tactics work because they exploit fundamental aspects of human psychology, but knowing about them gives you power over them. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, anyone who gets angry when you want time to think or seek outside opinions is showing you exactly why you should do both. What manipulation tactic have you encountered? Share your experiences in the comments below and subscribe for more insights into the hidden psychology that shapes our daily lives.